It looks like we've got a good turnout today. Welcome to Mazévo Connect. If you haven't already introduced yourself in the chat, go ahead and feel free. It's always great to see who we have here. My name's Brian Peck. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here with Mazévo. And if this is your first Mazévo Connect, welcome. We do these every month on various topics. This month here, we're going to be talking about operations, which is always of interest. We always get a lot of questions from everybody about that. So before we start, just to kind of let everybody know how these things usually work. So we're going to have a presentation here and we'll go through the operations, the stuff that we want to show you. I do have everybody on mute right now so that just during the presentation aspect, but we do love it to be interactive. So please feel free, if you have questions as we're going through, put them in the chat, in the comments there. We will be keeping an eye on those and we'll answer those. And then once the main part's done, we can definitely open it up. And if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question that way, totally welcome to do that. So that's how we usually run these things. And yeah, and so I'm joined here by a few of my Mazévo colleagues. I'll go ahead and introduce them. I've got Joe Finley and Wendy Newland here joining me. They're both on our training staff. So if you're a Mazévo customer and you've implemented Mazévo in the last, I don't know, year or two, you've probably worked with one of them. And I'm also joined by Dean Evans, our CEO. So the plan today is to talk about operations, and I want to just kind of set the stage for what that is before we dive into it. So when we talk about operations here, we're usually talking about the aspect of setting up the events that you have going on, whether that's delivering equipment, moving tables and chairs, getting room ready, maybe it's supplying catering to an event, but it's all the things that happen to make your meetings and activities take place. And so if you're on this call right now, it's probably safe to assume that that's something that your organization deals with quite a bit. And traditionally, that is usually done by, you have some kind of scheduling software, whether it's Mazévo or something else, and all the details are in there. And then you go and you print out a report and you give that to your setup team so that they then know what they need to do throughout the day. And that has been the way it's been for years. However, now that we're in this electronic on-demand age, when we designed Mazévo, one of the first things we did is we thought about, well, how can we deliver that type of information electronically instead of making everyone dependent on the paper reports? Because these days, everybody's got their phone on them. They may have access to a tablet or an iPad or something like that. So how can we make that available to people that way? So that's what we're going to be talking about. And we want to actually show it to you and go through what it actually looks like so that you can kind of see what it looks like from the end user perspective, the person who's actually setting things up, what it might look like from a manager perspective. Because when you do things electronically, it gives you some more options than doing things with the old paper report, right? So that's what we're gonna show you, and some of the things that you can do that way there. And I know too, one of the questions that we get and things that's always a hot topic is like, well, how do we switch over to that? Because you might have a staff that is in various levels of acceptance of wanting to make a change away from their precious paper reports. Totally understandable. That happens all the time. So we're going to also talk about some strategies and just some ways to kind of think about it to make the switch, because it's actually probably much easier than you might expect here. So with that said, that's what we're going to do. And the way we're going to approach this is myself, Wendy, and Joe are going to kind of role play a scenario here. So I'm going to start first, and I'm actually going to pull up the operations piece on my phone. You can get to it from your phone's browser, so you don't even need to download an app on the App Store. I mean, you don't even need to tell people to download anything. They can just go to the browser on their phone, log into Mazevo, and it's all right there. So I'm going to show you that piece first, because that's probably how it's most commonly utilized, but it's not the only way to get to this information. If you're at a computer, absolutely, you can pull this up. And so Joe's going to show you what it looks like from the computer. He's going to be playing the role of somebody who's on the, like, say, the audio visual team that delivers AV equipment and things like that. And then finally, Wendy's going to show you at the end what it looks like from a manager perspective. Typically, a manager is using it on the computer, although they could be doing that from their phone as well. So it really doesn't matter, though, what device you're on. If you're on the phone, you're on the computer, you're on a tablet. So we just want to show it to you from those different perspectives if you haven't seen it before. And again, as we're going through this stuff, put your questions in the chat. We will definitely keep an eye on those there. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and let's see, I'm going to pull down my slide here. So I'm going to stop that. And then I'm going to switch over to my phone. So give me just a second. Okay, excellent. So I am on my phone here already. And let me just show you, I'm on an iPhone. It doesn't matter, though, if you're on a iPhone or an Android phone. It works great on both. And I've actually got a shortcut to Mazevo on my phone's home screen right here. So I can get right into it real easy. We'll talk about that here towards the end, how you can tell people to put a little shortcut on there if they're using Mazevo a lot. But they can literally just use their phone's browser. It's nothing special, Safari, Chrome, whatever they're running on their phone. But anyways, I'm already logged into Mazevo, and this is what I see. And I've got it. My role is somebody who's on the operations team. So I'm only seeing things that have to do with operations. You can see it's a very, very simple menu. Everything about this is designed to be, super easy. You shouldn't have to train your staff a lot on how to do things, stuff like that. It's just easy to get to. So I've only got literally two options right here, operations, and then this file log report. File log report might not even show either. If you're not doing log reports in your organization, that goes away. You won't see it at all. So we're going to go in, though, for this example. We're going to be saying I'm role playing somebody who is delivering catering. So if you don't do catering in your organization, totally fine. Just imagine I'm talking about facilities or something else that you have there. But it's just, that's the role I'm playing. I'm playing somebody who I'm delivering food, and that's really what my focus is. I'm not doing AV equipment. I'm not doing room setups, anything like that. So I'm going to click on operations. And when I do this, it's going to open up today's events on my phone here. And this is just showing me a schedule of all the events that I am going to be focusing on. So as somebody in catering, that's the stuff I want to see. I don't want to see things that don't have catering at all on there, because I'm not going to deal with those. So my screen is set up to only show me the activities that have catering associated with them. And we'll go over in a little bit how to make that happen. But it's just kind of, I've got my blinders on here, so I'm only seeing the things that have catering. And I can see all of the events, and they're by default, it's always just going to bring up the current day. You don't have to do anything special to, go to today. It's already showing me here's today's date. Now I could skip ahead if I needed to and see what's going on tomorrow, but most of the time people just care about here's what's going on today. And I can see all the activities. So I'm going to use this second one here that's highlighted, this HR meeting as our example. I can kind of see right here when it's happening. It's happening 3 to 4 o'clock in Kent Hall in room 142. It's confirmed, and I can see those little icons that you have there. That is showing me things like how the room is set up. So I can tell from the first icon it's a theater style, and then the next two just tell me it's got some audio visual and some catering. So we use those icons as just kind of quick little visual shortcuts to giving me an idea of, all right, what's involved with this. So if I actually tap on the meeting, it's going to open up a little window here. And here's some of the details that I'm looking at. I can see when it's happening. This one doesn't have any setup time on there, but if it did, I'd be seeing, how long we have to set the room up, how long teardown is, things like that. One of the first things I'm seeing, though, is under the attendance, it says setup diagram. So that's one of the first things is you can, in Mazevo, you can upload your room diagrams on there, and those can be a PDF, or it can be something, if you're using like a social tables, which is totally web-based, you just put the link in there to the social tables diagram and it'll pull up. It can be a JPEG. It can be any type of file like that. It doesn't really matter. But I can tell right here that there is a room diagram, and that's why it's saying room diagram. If I want to see what that looks like, I just go ahead and tap on it, and it's going to open it up for me, and then I can see it on my phone, and I can zoom in and scroll around, that kind of stuff. So this is, first off, this is a great way to deliver those diagrams to your setup folks that way, so they can always have access and see it. Then underneath that, we've got these little red squares that are listed there and a little blue triangle next to it. So those are just showing me, these are the different, we call them service providers in Mazevo. And if you're a EMS user, those are called categories. Same kind of concept though, right? It's just, this is what's needed for the event. And I can, by just tapping on each one of these, like the triangle, they kind of just pull open like that. And then I can see what's in there. So again, I'm concerned mainly with catering. So I'm going to go there first, and I can see, okay, it's catering, and there are 10 assorted beverages here. And there's a little description underneath of what that is. So I'm just seeing everything. This is a really, really simple one. It's just got 10 beverages there. And that's it. So I can see what I need to do just right from this, right? Now, I can refer to these other things like the audio visual or the room setup. If I open those, I can see, what they're going to be doing for setup in the room, because I may need to refer to that, right? Just to kind of know as I'm doing the catering, what they're going to be doing for setup. So I can still get to all the information, but again, I'm mainly concerned with catering here. And that's the first thing. So I wanted to just, I'll pause right there, because if you did nothing else, this stuff is all going to happen basically automatically. You can just give your staff access to this. They would start seeing things in the way that I'm showing it right here. Now, if you want to go to what we would call level 2 with operations, you're seeing some buttons on here right underneath catering. You can see not started is highlighted, in progress, and completed. So this next step is totally optional. You don't have to have your staff do this. But if you want to, this is one of the advantages of it being on the phone. You can actually have them mark off when things are complete. So, okay, I've delivered the beverages. That's done. I just mark it as complete. And it completes it and puts my name next to it. It says assigned to Brian Peck right underneath it. So that's the first thing, is it will log, so to speak, that this has been done. And Wendy's going to show you in a minute what that looks like from a manager perspective. So somebody on the back end can kind of see which events have been set up, which ones haven't. So that's the first thing. You can mark things as complete there. The next thing is there's a couple of little icons next to my name. There's a little looks like a clipboard and a little picture icon. So these are additional things that people can do. They can log pictures, or they can log additional notes with the event. So if I wanted to put some notes in here, I can do anything. And because it's on my phone, right, I don't even have to type it in there. I can just say, all the catering is delivered and the beverages are ready to go. Okay, it's kind of redundant to say that because I've already marked it as complete, but you get the point. It's like sometimes people will use this to say things if they notice, there was some damage in the room. Maybe they find an item that was left there from the last event. They want to say, hey, somebody left a laptop in there, something like that. It's a great place to log that kind of stuff. So You just put that in there and we just hit save. Now that becomes part of the event record that way. And then the next thing is that little picture icon. So maybe I wanted to take a picture, of the room set up now that I'm done or something like that. I can just hit that. And I actually, I'll just show you how that works. I'll go to my photo library and I had just grabbed a picture of some catering stuff. There we go. We'll say I snapped that picture right here with my phone. And there it is. So now we've got a photo logged on here as well. So your staff can actually be logging things as they progress through. One of the other things I'll show you, if you look closely, audio visual has that pink or red square next to it, but catering now has a green check mark next to it. And that's because I marked it as complete. So anybody viewing this event, if they're doing catering or not, they're going to see which ones have been completed, which ones haven't. So it's just, again, it's just kind of a visual reference that way. So let's see here. Was that it? Yes. So the next thing I wanted to show, I'm going to go ahead and we'll close this one. And if we're back now on this original screen that's showing me the schedule of all the events that have catering today. And you can see that check mark translated back onto this screen, right? So I can see this one's done. So if I'm somebody else who's on the catering team or something like that, I can see, oh, this one's been done. Let me work on the next one or whatever it is. Okay, so in essence, that's what operations is. Now, there's one other piece in here that you can do, and that's these work items. Up at the top, you see this work items, and it's got a little 1 in a circle. These are for things that you want people to do that aren't necessarily part of a booking. These are all bookings down here. These are, dates and times people are using the room for their activity. These work items are not associated with any booking. So if you want to assign tasks or things you want your staff to do when they're not setting up one of these bookings, you can go over here to work items. And so I can see here, I've got some daily service tasks that haven't been started yet. And there's a little, that little kind of square icon. If I touch that, it'll tell me just some description, right, of what this thing is. Like, oh, I can go empty the trash can, straighten up the lobby, sweep the floor, that kind of stuff. And so I can view all of that, and it kind of works the same way. If I'm like, okay, I've got some time, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. I just hit the not started, and then I can mark it as completed there. And again, I've got the same notes concept and a picture if I need it, and I just hit save, and that marks it off as complete, takes it off the list. It's now marked as completed that way. So anyways, that was kind of what it looks like from my perspective using the phone right here. What I want to do now, I'm going to stop sharing, and Joe is going to be up next. Joe is our friendly AV technician, and he is going to be doing some things from his computer. So he's going to show you similar type things that I was doing, but what it just looks like on the computer that way. So
cool. Thanks, Brian. That was great. So everybody, I'm Joe Finley. I'm logged in as somebody that is in the AV technician office, and I have to supply the different electronics to the meetings. My main menu in Mazevo, again, I'm on a browser on the computer, has a little more access. So I have events access and reports access as well as approvals. But the operations is where I'm going. I can access it from my menu at the top or from the main Mazevo menu here called Manage Operations. This will drop into exactly what Brian was showing on the phone. However, this is on the computer. We see we have many more data fields. Now, I have some settings for me as an AV technician that says I'm responsible for all the buildings. So I do check off all my buildings, and I look for specific statuses of events. So that's where you have some filtering and all. So based on your workflow, you may do that. But then on my service providers, I'm checked off for audio visual only. Okay. So those are my settings so that my preloaded window when I open up, comes up with just the things I want. So just like Brian, comes up to today's date, and it shows me only my service providers. If I want to see everything, I can see everything across the board with this little deselection of that checkbox. But I'm also in here for today. I also have the two tabs that Brian showed, the bookings and the work items. But as an AV technician, you may want to be looking more than just today's, because you may need to prepare for something in the future. So again, like Brian said, you can choose a day. So I could actually choose a date here into the future to say, oh, I need to go over here and work on some items. And I can see my little icons, just like Brian was showing in his, for these two events on the 1st, okay? So I can go it forward as far as I need to. Okay, I'm going to go back to today because that's where we're working within our use case. So within the use case of my events for audio visual, you can see my little icon here. And I've got a couple of meetings that happened this morning, and I'm just hovering right now with my mouse over the little icon, and you can see it says audio visual completed. That's one that I did earlier today because the meeting was at 9 a.m. and similar to the next one. And then I've got the other one that says, oh, this one is in progress. So I'm just hovering right now. And here's the ones that are not started as I go over each one of those. Okay. So my action for today is starting with this particular one here, the CPR one, where I have actually got it started. And sorry, didn't mean to click. I wanted to show you the icons. I've got that it's set to in progress, meaning that I'm delivering the microphone probably to this, or I'm getting it ready to go out there or whatever. So that's where I can use that. That's that level 2 workflow of this that Brian was talking about. But then once I've got it in there, I can actually mark it as completed, and I can add notes if I want, and or upload an image just like Brian showed. It just does a browse for any of your images on your screen based on your last default folder setting. Okay. So if I mark that as complete, you can see now I have a green checkbox. I also have, again, the summary information about the event, about what's happening, where it's happening, and all. The other one that Brian was working on is this HR meeting one. And that's where I have some audio visual on this as well. And so with that, it's requiring a laptop to be there. So I need to make sure that I get that laptop there and check it off, and again, add notes if I want. Okay, I've got one down here. I believe it was this one. I put it in progress. I'm sorry, I'm clicking over here. I put it in progress because I put an actual note on here, like, oh, I'm going to be using the laptop out of this other existing one. That's an example of using that. And if you need more notes, you can make this bigger or smaller if you need to. Okay. So as I go through my day or my action of the day to know what's coming, I've got my full list of items here to review. To check off, I can look at the diagrams like Brian was showing on the mobile phone as well. It'll, if it's a PDF, it opens up in a new tab, the image that you have based on how your browser settings are, and or if it's a JPEG, these are on mine or opening up in a pop-up window. So I can review that if I need to as well. Okay. The other thing that you might see are these two columns here, last hours and next hours, and these numbers. And it's like, well, what does all that mean, right? So what this means is, for this meeting, I'll start with the top one, the CPR training. It means that after this meeting is over at 3:30, there's another meeting that starts at 4 o'clock. So the next meeting using that room is a half hour from the time this one ends. Okay. So that's kind of a little tip there for you to say, oh, well, I got a little bit of time to go and get that equipment out of there before the next meeting if that meeting doesn't have it. I can also click on it and view that specific booking as well if I need to see more details about what it might involve, right? Similar here, the HR meetings shows that there was a meeting that happened just before this one, sorry, not 50 minutes, a half hour, because these are in decimal form of hours. A half hour before this meeting starts, there's another meeting. And the next meeting that happens in this room is not for 17 hours. Okay. So that's how those data fields help you as a technician or an office to say, oh, well, I need to rush to get to this one, or I can wait on this one. So it helps you to kind of prioritize your work and where you need to go. Okay. Any other items that I might do? I might kind of like go over here and take a peek at what's happening tomorrow at the end of my day or something. Again, easy to select your dates of what date you want to see. Okay. And I believe that covered all that I needed to show. Okay. Any questions? Put them in the chat. We'll address them. Now we'll turn it over to Wendy.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I want everybody to notice that they made a woman the boss. I am acting as the boss of both Joe and Brian. As you can see, I see the same thing as what Joe saw. I'm only showing my service providers, but if I want to see the entire litany of things happening on this day, I can by deselecting this box. What I want to show you first of all is level 3. So this is sort of the level 3 advanced manage operations. So I'm going to come to this event right here. And you'll notice there's my 3 service providers on here. As a boss, I want to assign staff. Okay. Earlier, Brian and Joe were just picking up events and it automatically assigned them. But now I'm going to actually assign staff. So I'm going to assign Joe to this. And I'm going to go to catering and I'm going to assign Brian. I want him to set up and tear down. So now when they log in, they will see this under their work. Okay, and they will see that they are assigned. Somebody posted in the chat, now how do I see if something's been completed? I think it was Sylvia. So Sylvia, if you come over here, this is the HR meeting that Brian was working with. And if I come over here to the work log, I can see all of the things that Brian or anybody else has done to this event. He's changed it to completed, assigned himself, added a note, and he uploaded a photo. So now this is looking at the work log for the individual event, but you can see an entire day's work log, but under operations, under work log. All right. Okay, some more advanced things, level 3, we like to call it. Work items. So I can assign work items to people. Here I've assigned one to Brian, a catering work item. And now I'm going to assign something to Joe. And again, this is not attached to a booking. This is just a task, so to speak. So I'm going to say change bulbs. And projector. And I don't necessarily have to assign it. That way a worker could just pick it up, whoever grabs it, or I can assign it to Joe. And I do want to point something out here. It defaults to tomorrow's date because it's thinking that you're planning for tasks for people to do in the future. You certainly can change this to today. All right. And I can schedule it for a specific time. Maybe I want him to do it tomorrow at 10. You also have the ability to do multi-day. Maybe you want somebody to dump the trash every Friday. All right, so I'm going to save this. All right, now a little bit about how to set this up. So let me just come back to my manage operations here and take a step back on, well, how do you set all of this up? Top right corner, Joe pointed out, under your settings, you pick whatever buildings you are in charge of if you're the manager. Then you pick whatever statuses you are concerned about. So in this case, I'm concerned about bookings in a confirmed status and a tentative status. Then you pick the service providers that you are in charge of. And last but not least, my staff. Who are my employees? Now, the people that show up here have been given the role of either service worker or service manager. Right? Okay. Now, a little bit more level 3 stuff. You'll notice this column right here, ready. All right, so because I am an event planner and global administrator, service manager, I can actually come into an event and flag it set as ready. So anybody with service manager role can do that. And when I do that, it shows that this room is ready to have the next guest come in. And I don't have to do them one at a time. I can select all of them, or I can select a few and set them as ready. Again, this is advanced. Don't have to use that piece of manage operations. Now, the next thing I want to point out that manage operations has is this column right here, reviewed. So think of those meetings that you have with your daily operations report and you mark things off. Yes, we've reviewed this. Yes, we've reviewed this. Yes, we've reviewed this. You can do it electronically simply by clicking on the box here and flagging it as reviewed. All right, or you can multi-select, flag them as reviewed. When you do that, it gets the yes, it changes from no to yes. All right. Now, should something change on the booking after you have reviewed it, you will see this right here that says changed with a little icon that says changed. I can drill into that event and see, well, what was changed since I last reviewed it? And in this case, the time changed. So a point that I want to make here is just because I've reviewed it doesn't necessarily mean my colleagues have reviewed it. So it looks as if it's been reviewed just by me. But if Brian were to log in as a worker or Joe, they wouldn't necessarily see this yes, because maybe they haven't reviewed it. All right. One thing that I do want to show you, hopefully this will pull up okay. Many times we get the question, well, what triggers the reviewed flag? These are the things that trigger the changed flag, the changed icon. Can you see that, Brian? Am I showing my Word document?
No, we're only seeing this. So.
Okay. Do this real quick because this will be important. There, how about that?
Yes, we're seeing that.
Okay. So adding a resource, changing the quantity of a resource, changing service time, so on and so forth. I won't read them all to you, but that's what would trigger the changed icon post review. And then down below, things that don't trigger the changed icon. All right, so I will stop sharing and Brian, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. So now that you've seen it kind of firsthand and we've shown you what it looks like and some of the functions in there and everything, let's talk just for a moment about what making the switch to this might look like for you. And then we'll open it up to some questions after that. But so that's the thing. You might be in an organization where you're just used to the paper and that's the way everybody's used to doing their job. And it's just, you know, they get their report, things like that. You don't have to think of this as an all or nothing switch. I think that sometimes, you know, when people are thinking about this, they're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get my entire staff on this? You know, I've got some people that have worked here for 20 years and they are technology phobic and just don't even want to deal with this stuff. Totally get it. You can run in kind of a mixed mode if you want to, meaning that fine. Give the people their paper that love their paper, continue to give them their paper. Those that are more on the electronic side, turn them loose on operations. Just say, hey, yeah, go log in here. You'll see everything that's on the paper report on your phone. And that works perfectly fine. You don't have to do all this advanced stuff, that level 2 and 3 stuff that Wendy and I were talking about. You can save that for later. You can take kind of a piecemeal approach to this. So you can I just want people to kind of think about it that way, so it doesn't become this overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big thing to get everybody to switch. It doesn't have to be. You can kind of, dip your toe in it and then just kind of keep wading out to the deep end as you go that way. So I don't know if anybody has any additional advice that has made the switch that's on this call. If you do, please feel free to chime in. I did notice we've got Lindy on here. Lindy's with University of Tennessee Martin. She actually did one of our first Mazévo Connects for us way back in 2021. And it was all about how they switched her operation to an electronic process using operations. I'll put the recording up in the chat and I'll send it out with my recording here later, so you all can watch that if you're interested. But there you can kind of hear from a real world example of somebody that did make the switch and what that looked like for them and what they liked and things like that. But it was a great presentation. I would encourage you to check it out if you're curious. So anyways, yeah, at this point, I see there's been quite a few questions in the chat. It looks like Dean's been busy there getting to most of those. Were there any in there, Dean, that we need to address still? Oh, you're muted at this point.
Carrie has got an interesting situation where she wants to be able to assign work to a group of people rather than one individual. So if a team of kind of comes and goes, she's got a group of roughly 20 people. So Carrie, if you feel free to unmute and explain that a little bit so we have some more context on that. But
yeah, happy to do that. Sorry. Sorry to ask the hard questions. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this could be used with our specific sort of application. Our event ops team has more than 20 students who have rotating schedules, and they don't, it's not consistent. And oftentimes, even if they were scheduled, they'll switch, they'll change shifts with each other, things like that, right? So what we have done in another program is if we're going to try to assign something, we create a user and we call that user the name instead of the actual person's name. We just call that user the event ops team, right? Or the event ops crew or whatever. So we create a user for that, and we then assign all of those tasks to that person. But other people can see who can see those tasks and see that it's assigned to the event ops crew. And then they do those tasks as themselves. They're not signing in as the event ops crew person. They're signing in as themselves. So I was trying to figure out a way if that's possible. And I guess my question for you guys with Mazévo is, can we see, let's say I have somebody named Tony on the crew. When he signs in as himself and looks at tasks, is he only seeing his own tasks, or can he see other people's tasks?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll mention with the assigning of the work, right? When you say, I want to assign it to Tony or whoever, one thing to keep in mind is that is totally optional. You do not need to assign work to individuals in order for this to work. If I'm on the event ops team, when I log in, I will see all the event ops stuff, whether or not it's been assigned to me. So that's the first thing, is that it's just that if you assign it to somebody, then they can filter down even more and say, I don't need to see all the event ops stuff because there's 50 things today. I just want to see the things that are assigned to me personally. And so they can do that, but they can switch back and forth. So in your case here, Tony could, uncheck the box essentially that says, well, just show me all the event ops stuff, and there it all is. Or if he keeps it checked, it'll just show the stuff that's been assigned to him.
Okay, what about, we often have our evening crew will be taking care of the events that are happening that night, but they're also setting up events for the next day. So if we have something that's in progress and Tony marks it as in progress, but it's for the next day, then does Susan see it when she logs in the next day? Can she see it even though it's already been assigned to him because he marked it as in progress?
Yes. So just marking it as in progress or even completed doesn't hide it from people. It still shows on the list. We just put a different little icon. If you remember when I was showing it to you on the phone, remember that little check mark that was next to the catering? They're going to see if they mark it in progress, it's not a check mark. It's actually a yellow triangle that shows next to it, but they still see it. So it's just that if it's assigned to Tony and the person who's logging in the next day says, I only want to see the stuff that's assigned to me, they're not going to see it. They need to uncheck the box that says, well, show me all the stuff. And then they'll see all the event ops things for that day, whether or not they've been assigned to them.
Okay. Our event ops team also tends to they tend to notate what events for the next day need to be preset. So tonight they'll have notated which events for tomorrow need to be preset. Is there any way to sort of do that? Or would they just kind of have to look at those hours on the next day, like how many hours ahead of time?
Yeah, I don't think there'd be an easy way for them to pre-notate like, hey, these are ones that, need to be
Okay.
looked at or something like that. Yeah.
Yep, that's fine. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anybody else?
I have a question for Lindy. She said it was the best change ever. Why is that, Lindy?
We were using a very, very outdated room booking system and operating system for setups. And it was only able to be used when you were on our campus Wi-Fi and those kind of things. And when we switched to this and being able to have the app that was able to be used on my facilities crew's iPad and pull up a picture, or on their iPhone, or I have several with Android devices. That was a game changer for us. And we also didn't have a way for my student workers to take the setup with them. So they were running back and forth to a computer to check a room, then back to the computer to check a room, because we were trying to save paper and not printing out reports every day. But then being able to have it on their iPhone and going through and checking off that they have checked a room and it's completed and it's ready was a game changer for us. I was very lucky that all of my facilities staff are pretty tech savvy and we're all on board for this. There is another building on our campus that uses this, that has a guy that, kind of like Brian said, he's been working for the university for I believe 25 years, and every year he says he's going to retire. He has a flip phone and he's not changing it, and he doesn't want to learn how to use an iPad. So for him, we use the reports function so that we can pull a report for him every day. So he's the only one that gets a paper report, so he knows what he has to pull up and set up every day. But the rest of us are all using iPhones and iPads, or I pretty much stay on the desktop version for my side of it for operations, but game changer for us.
Nice.
Great, great.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's see here.
Brian, somebody wants to see how you set up the shift log, or how it works, the log reports.
Oh, the log reports. Yeah. So log reports here, I'll show it to you on my phone first, just so you can kind of see how it works, and then we can talk about how it gets set up. So let me just bring that up real quick here. Okay. All right, so we're back in on my phone. Let me go back to the main screen. So this log reports that the questions about here. This is a piece in Mazévo that you can configure, and it's basically what we find is a lot of these organizations. We see this a lot in student centers. You have your student workers, and they're required at the end of each shift to file a report on what they did for that shift or anything that happened, you know, those kinds of things. So this is just an electronic way to do that, and it's built into Mazévo. So people can come, and if that's something I'm required to do, I can literally fill it out on my phone if I want to, or I can go to a computer and do it there. But I click on this file log report, and it's going to show me any of the reports that I have access to. And usually there's just one or two, but like in this one here, I've got a shift report to fill out. Another one you might see would be like an incident report. Maybe something happened and I need to, you know, file a report about that. So I might see a couple of options, but I click on the one that I want. And then essentially it's just a form that they fill out with various questions. You configure these questions. It can be as long as you need it to be. And it's just, you know, you're seeing examples right here. And they can just fill it out right here on their phone, answer all the questions. And then they hit save. That saves the report and essentially files it. And then it's in there. And then a manager can come and they can go and they can run and say, you know, show me all the shift reports for today or last week. So we have a kind of a report that way that they can run. Those can also be emailed out automatically. So once a day or once overnight, they can get a copy of all the shift reports that have been filed if they prefer to receive them that way. But that's essentially what it does. It's just a way for people to file this information there. So, and that's just set up under configuration. If you're an administrator, you go in and there's a shift report section. That's where you can configure these. And then you can also determine who should be filling these out, essentially. So, right. Do you have any other questions? Let's see. Well, if there aren't any other questions about this, please let us know how this works for you. If you are going to be rolling out ops and you haven't already, also don't hesitate to give us a call, email us, ask for help if you want some assistance in getting this set up for your organization. We'd be more than happy to help you. Like Lindy said, I really do believe, I think this can be a game changer for a lot of organizations out there that are just, you know, doing things off the computer or off paper, that kind of thing there. So, but yeah, hopefully that was helpful. I do want to, before we sign off, we put a new feature into Mazévo that I wanted to tease everybody with and show it to you. I'd be more than happy. We can get this turned on for people. It's not turned on for all of you by default. We kind of have been slowly staggering this out as people have wanted it. But there's a new email logging feature that is now part of Mazévo. So what that is you can take any email from any of your customers and you can forward it to Mazévo and it will show up on their event. And it gets logged on their event so that any of your staff that are viewing that event would be able to see a history of any emails that have been forwarded in. Because we know that's an issue for a lot of people. You get these kind of siloed things where, you know, I may be working with a customer quite a bit and we're going back and forth over email, figuring out all the details of their event. And Wendy, who's working with me, has no idea all that's happened. And she steps in when I'm out and is trying to help the customer and has no clue what's been happening. But if that email was in there, she'd be able to refer to that on the event. So I just wanted to show you how that works. It's super, super easy. So I'm going to bring up my screen and we'll take a look at it. So what this is, this email logging right here. So I've already opened up an event called the Fall Social right here. And, I'm looking at the bookings and things like that. So what I can do here is I can drop this down, and there's an event email address that's on every single event, essentially, in Mazevo. And it's always going to be formatted something, kind of an abbreviation for your organization. So mine's demo 1 right here. And then it's followed by the event ID. See how this is exactly identical to the event ID? So every email has this exact format. So it's easy for you to remember. However, if you don't remember it, you just click on the email and it copies it to your clipboard. Then all you have to do, go into your email, find the email that you want to show up on this event, and just send the email to this address, and it will show up right here under the emails and email history. Now, this one doesn't have any, but I would see in here the email, the entire message, and any attachments as well. So if they sent you a form or a contract or whatever, it's now on your event, and it's just all going to happen automatically if you send that. You can also use this as a CC address. So if you're replying back to the customer and you CC this on there, that email will also end up in the history as well. So definitely check that out. Now, we do need to turn this on for you if you want to use it. So just email us. You can email me, email support, and we'll get it turned on for you, because by default it's turned off right now. But we'll turn this on, and then you can start using it and see what you think.
Hey,
So,
Brian, refresh your screen. I just sent you an email.
hey, awesome. All right.
Let's see if it gets in there.
Yeah. So we go there. Oh, not yet. So try one more time.
Oh,
Might take a
maybe.
second to get
Yeah.
through all the internet plumbing there, but yeah, it's gonna show up. So
I could have mistyped it as well too. So
okay. Yeah, it's not in there yet. Anyways, it was working. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that. Let's see. Awesome, some good feedback there on that. Wonderful. All right, well, we're almost at our hour, and thank you everyone for your participation today. I hope this was helpful. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you need some help with this stuff, and also just let us know how it's going. We'd love to hear about it. So anyways, look for some information on next month's Mazévo Connect. I'll be posting some stuff up here probably in another week or so, and we'll let you know as soon as that's up there. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time. So thanks again.